Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you guys might be aware, 2024 wasn't exactly the best year for the gaming industry. The ironic thing is, we actually got a bunch of amazing games in 2024, but there was also a lot of turmoil that was happening in 2024 as well. And that is mainly due to the actions of the mainstream gaming industry themselves. We have gaming journalists out here still attacking people even in 2025 and clearly not learning a damn thing and doubling down on the same thing that got them in trouble in the first place. And then you had developers, psychopathic, ideologically driven developers that decide that, hey, my ideology is more important than the actual game that I'm working on. Let me just push this nonsense and do my activism because I'm getting paid for it regardless. And let's go look and see if gamers love this stuff. Well, we told them we didn't like it. We told them they're morons. They didn't listen, and obviously things exploded from there.
And as you can see, Jumpy runs, jumps, collects stuff, and beats bad guys. Simple family fun.
Guys, it's perfect. Ah, there you are. Gentlemen, meet our new DEI consultant. She's here to fix your game.
But I thought you said it was perfect.
No, it's just an expression.
Hello, everyone. I'm Leslie Perkins, she, her.
So now we have an article here from PC Gamer that's a little bit of a cope and seethe article that I thought was pretty damn funny when I went through it. And I was like, you know what? Let's talk about this today because it's a damn good conversation considering, hey, it's New Year's, right? The new year is here. Are they going to learn from anything that happened in 2024? Absolutely not. So let's get into this article, guys, from PC Gamer. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. So it says, after 2024, it feels like the games industry is poised for a vibe shift or maybe a reckoning. This year's trends and hardships are setting up 2025 to be a year of big change. Now, I do agree with that. We are going to see massive amounts of change in 2025. We already saw massive amounts of change in 2024. If you guys are paying attention, we saw so many studios close down. We saw all the studios that put out good products do well. We saw praise. We saw turmoil. We saw all kinds of things. But it was a fantastic year overall for the consumer and for gamers in general, because not only did they get good games that were worth it, like Black Myth Wukong and Space Marine, but on top of that, too, we got a lot of these studios and a lot of these consultancy firms and a lot of these journalists out here were held accountable for the nonsense they got away with over the last 5 to 10 years. Well, no more. That is not going to happen any longer. So then it says 2024 has been a year of incredible video games, which I agree. It's also been bloody, just like 2023 before it. There have been thousands of layoffs, dozens of studios closures, failures from companies that we once saw assumed were too big to fail. This is huge right here. If you guys, I'm telling you, this right here, companies that were once assumed too big to fail, that is massive because we were successful in taking down multiple games and multiple studios that were once deemed too big to fail. And that whole mantra of being too big to fail, it's only being carried through by a lot of the shills that are in the industry right now, whether they're YouTuber shills, whether they're journalist shills, or whether they're just flat out a shill in general. There is a lot of people out there that truly believe that the majority of companies are just too big to fail. They truly believe that they're just supposed to eat the slop because everybody else does it, right? That's basically the kind of mentality that they have. And then they started realizing, oh, wow, things are getting done. Things are happening. Wow, gamers are actually fighting against this stuff. Wow, look at what's going on with all these studios closing down. Why did Volition close down? Why did Suicide Squad Killer Justice League die off? Why did Concord never go past 10 days of being alive? You know, all these questions started being risen up in people who were otherwise shills, and they realized, oh, wow, I didn't have to be a shill anymore. There's actual change happening. This is fantastic. And then we saw some flip-flopping. We saw some fence sitting. But overall, it was just a very, very interesting year. But then again, GameStop shut down Game Informer, the only other surviving gaming magazine in the U.S., as its CEO honed his corporate strategy to tweeting Trump 700 times in a row. By the way, this article was written by a journalist who clearly didn't learn from 2024, which is going to make this even funnier to react to because they spend the entire time obsessing over the right-wing politics. That's what they do. And they've been doing it in 24, and they're doing it now in 25. So is this journalist going to learn? Absolutely not. But that's why we are here, so we can talk about this. Elon Musk threw in with the games are too woke crowd, which I'm sure they're mad because Elon Musk took their baby away. And as he reflects on this year and tries to hold those two thoughts in his head, it's been another great year for games and another terrible year for the games industry. Another more nebulous one is floating around the edges, harder to fully grasp, and that is 100% true. If you think 2024 was the worst it's going to get, I guarantee you that's not the case, because gamers are sick of this. The energy is going well into this year, and people are going to continue to fight against this nonsense within reason. It's something like this after yet another year of good games, but bad times, the mood is changing, reaching an enough of this shit threshold that could begin to rumble the status quo, and that's what we want. That's exactly what we want. We want the status quo rumbled. We don't want the status quo to exist anymore, because quite frankly, the status quo became the status quo by everybody just choosing to ignore what's happening and say, well, I just want to play video games, leave me alone. That mindset, unfortunately, and I was part of that mindset too many years ago, that mindset allowed for the flourishing of certain activists to join this industry and utilize it to push their own activism. And it only got worse and worse and worse until eventually what ends up happening every single time, by the way, is that they go too far. And once they go too far, that starts to wake up a lot of people. And then once people get woken up, that's basically it. You're fucked. That's the rough conclusion I come to after straining to Human Centipede, all of these 2024 events, and more into one monstrously fused thought. Then it says that roughly, here's some key. Now, I found these to be very interesting, these key highlights here. Listen to this part. This is very interesting. Roughly 15,000 game developers were laid off. There are far too few open roles for the industry to retain that talent, which we already knew that was going to be a thing. And it's so interesting because the developers that did the right thing, the developers that gave gamers what they actually wanted instead of preaching to them, guess what? They've been able to expand. They've been able to hire. They're the ones that have open roles. They're doing perfectly fine. They got all the money in the world, and they're moving on to the next project. It's incredible what happens when you actually do the right thing. Then here's the part where the journalists really expose themselves. Look at this. Right-wing reactionaries. Bro, how are you going into 2025 utilizing the same shit that you were using in 2014? How are you seriously still doing this at this point, where you're calling all opposition right-wing reactionaries? Are you seriously doing that right now? There are a bunch of content creators that I have personally seen who are left-leaning on YouTube that are against the nonstop shit that is happening in the gaming industry, or at least speak out against it in some way, shape, or form. There are people that watch my channel. There are people that comment on my channel that are not right-wing, and you are lumping everybody together because you're a retarded gaming journalist that sees Trump everywhere. That's genuinely the problem. Then anyway, renewed hate campaign. A hate campaign against wokeness and DEI in gaming, with consultancy Sweet Baby Inc. taking the brunt of the fire. Well, to be fair, Sweet Baby Inc., the reason why they took the brunt of the fire is because they're the ones who put themselves into it in the first place. They started the fire. They are the ones that started the fire, which is hilarious because PC Gamer and other journalists like PC Gamer, when they reported on SBI in the beginning of last year, they chose to lie through omission, and they chose to not tell you how Gamergate 2 started in the first place. They just wanted to tell you who was getting the effect of it in the mainstream gaming industry, which at the time was SBI, and they all thought, hey, we've done this before, we could do it again. Let's just do damage control for SBI, and eventually the narrative will be the truth that we put out there, and then all the gamers will have to just eat it because we're the mainstream, we're the establishment, we're the media. Well, you learned very quickly that that is not the case. Any remaining goodwill around Microsoft's acquisition spree, curdled with the blundering closure of Arcane Austin and Tango Gameworks, two extremely talented studios that paid the price for corporate balance sheet BS. Balatro, by the way, I never agreed with Tango Gameworks being taken down. Overall, I feel like that was a really bad move. So I'm glad that they at least got to continue elsewhere, but still, them getting taken down was a dumb move. Balatro spawned copycats nearly instantly, which I mean is going to happen considering that Balatro was voted Game of the freaking Year, or at least nominated, I'm sorry, not voted, Game of the Year, and voted in multiple other categories, which is just going to allow these people to want to recreate it. So copycats are a thing. And anytime somebody sees an indie game in such a high-profile award, yeah, you can pretty much bet your ass it's going to be multiple copies. After layoffs, years of internal struggles, and declining interest in Destiny 2, Bungie seems poised to be totally subsumed by Sony even after releasing a strong expansion. Concord's flop to the tune of $200 million prompted Sony to close not just the game, but the studio, bringing discourse around the risk of AAA development to a fever pitch. There is no... Okay, I'm not going to say there is no risk, but there is risk, obviously. But you can minimize the risk if you are actually making a video game that is tailored to a specific audience. The problem is that you are making a video game that has a certain message, and then after the game is made, you are then trying to find the audience. That doesn't make any sense. They do the same thing in Hollywood with the TV shows, where they make the TV shows based off what they want. They put their ideology in there, and then they go to try to find the audience. What are you doing? Why aren't you just making a video game and a TV show or a movie that has a certain audience already in mind? And then if word of mouth spreads and it just kind of goes like a wildfire, eventually you will find new viewers. But at least make something with a certain audience in mind. But they're too scared to do that. And the audience that they are making something for, which is the modern audience, it doesn't exist. It's been proven time and time again that the only successful classified woke games that are out there that are actually successful are woke games that have co-opted previously established franchises that weren't woke, at least not by modern definition anyway. So you don't make anything new for the most part that actually succeeds, and then you wonder why there is so much risk involved. It's because you're making shit that most people don't care about. Most people don't want to be preached to about social politics. Most people don't want to be preached to in general. Most people just want to play the damn game if it's made for them, if it's actually a good game. Roughly 18,700 games were released on Steam, up from 14,300 in 2023 and 9,700 in 2020. According to Steam's end-of-year review, only 15% of player time was spent in those 2024 games. So only 15% of players actually spent time playing new games. All the other people were playing older games. And it doesn't mean retro, it just means non-2024. So that could be 23 and under. And obviously this is possible due to massive backlogs that most people have, because let's be real, it's just becoming harder and harder to find time to play video games. But still, there is such a massive backlog out there that you can survive on just games that you have in your backlog for years and years and years on end. And these numbers prove it, because that's what the majority of players were doing on Steam in the first place. Even good games and established franchises are struggling. Well, that's because the established franchises are making new games, not respecting what made them established in the first place. Look at Dragon Age the Milgard, for example. Broader game sales reflected the same challenges, with only 3 of the year's top 10 games in Europe releasing in 2024. Intel had a catastrophically bad year between mass layoffs, borked and underperforming CPUs, and a dismal outlook for future production, spelling a gloomy future for competition versus NVIDIA, AMD, and ARM. Helldivers 2 proved new live service games can still be enormously successful, and it did so by eschewing the usual approaches to roadmaps, battle passes, and more. Yeah, but the problem is Helldivers 2 has tanked dramatically, right? Which, I mean, is pretty normal for a live service game, but due to the controversy that Helldivers 2 had, it absolutely lost some players. I know that for a fact because the controversy is what stopped me from going back to the game. Once that controversy happened, I got so disinterested in playing that game that I completely uninstalled it. I even tried to refund it, but unfortunately for me, and better for them, which I'm sure is what their plan was, I was unable to refund it due to the 2-hour limit. No matter how many times I reached out to Steam, they just wouldn't listen to me. They wouldn't do it. So they absolutely bank on things like that. And if you look at the player numbers, it's nowhere near what it used to be. And then Apex Legends proves that even games with years of experience, even companies that will still totally screw up their monetization in ways that will predictably piss off players while attempting to achieve unrealistic profits. So again, guys, it looks like the games industry and the people in the industry are finally acknowledging that things are not looking their way, right? They're finally acknowledging that things are about to hit the fucking fan, hit the ceiling. It's obvious, right? And they're all bracing for impact at this point. And the sad thing is that they're still using terminology like right-wing reactionaries, bro. Like they are unable to be helped. These people have such bad TDS. They are so politically ingrained that all they see is right-wing in everything that they don't like. It doesn't matter. And this is why they will never learn from the conversation at hand. This is why they failed in 2024. And this is why they will get absolutely wrecked in 2025. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate if you get to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.